targeting trade, the United States and the EU trying to hammer out a deal. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross recently said that progress has been unsatisfactory. His word, not mine. The U.S. and the U.K. also working to secure stronger trade ties as the U.K. navigates its exit from the European Union. There is an important meeting this week between EU lawmakers and the U.S., and that is the 23rd. So we will see what comes out of that meeting. Joining us right now is Dr. Liam Fox. He is the U.K. Secretary of State for International Trade and the President of the Board of Trade. It is good to see you, Dr. Fox. Thanks so much for joining us. First off, tell us what's at stake here in terms of what the negotiations look like between the UK and the EU.
Well, we're looking to get a withdrawal agreement where we can maximise our access to the EU market and they can access their to the UK market, but without tying our hands about future opportunities. In the growing parts of the world, the IMF saying that 90% of global growth in the next 10 to 15 years will be outside continental Europe. We obviously have to be free to be able to take advantage of that and not be tied by any agreement with the EU after we leave.
So is that the only way you can do a deal with the EU, that it's like exclusive, that you will not have access to other bilateral deals?
No, we said that one of the conditions of leaving is that we have to have an independent trade policy. It's one of the main reasons that I campaigned and voted to leave. But we also have other areas of contention still with the EU. We will not have any part of the United Kingdom treated differently from any other, particularly Northern Ireland. We want to ensure that we've not got any restrictions on us, and for example, on tax harmonisation with the EU afterwards. And we have to ensure that we ultimately have control over the date at which we end any transition period.
And the EU is saying, well, what's in it for us?
Access to the world's fifth biggest market.
There you go.
And Germany's biggest trading partner. And we will be the biggest trading partner, second biggest trading partner in the world for the European Union when we leave. So it's crazy to introduce impediments to trade or investment that don't exist today. Why would we want to see tariffs on our goods and add costs to our consumers? And
you're willing to go as far as you have to go with this stance, right? Because these are tenuous talks. I mean, people are wondering if, in fact, Britain does exit the EU. Theresa May, is she committed?
Well, we'll be leaving the EU on the 29th of March next year. The question is under what conditions and what our future relationship looks like. And as the Prime Minister will tell the House of Commons today, the deal's 95% done. But we have these areas where our sovereignty is at stake.
You said it very, very well, very articulate. You're hosting International Trade Day here in New York to strengthen the trade ties between the U.S. and the U.K. Tell us about that. What do you want to see with the U.S.?
Well, we have a unique relationship with the U.S. It's our biggest single export market as a country. We have $1 trillion invested in one another's countries. 1 million Americans go to work for UK companies and vice versa every day. So it's very important that we look at the future of these growing global markets, see where we have restrictions and working with one another. How do we help, for example, our SMEs? How do we help protect in areas like cybersecurity? These are the issues that we're discussing today.
Yeah. What would you like to see in a bilateral deal with the U.S.? I know that there are issues in terms of Europe and the U.K., but specifically the U.K. and the U.S., what might that look like?
Well, we'll want to see where there are restrictions in terms of tariffs on goods, but if you look at the real opportunity, it's for us to move forward on services. The US is the biggest global service exporter. We're second. If we can get a liberalisation there, fantastic. If you can get move towards a single market, for example, in financial services, that would be groundbreaking globally.
But how does that jive with what's happening already for financial services companies? I mean, you know that businesses need certainty. And over this last year, businesses weren't sure how this would play out. And so they've tried to hedge their bets, putting some of their employees in Germany, trying to take some others out. I mean, the exit from the European Union has confused some people, certainly financial services companies. Theresa May, the Prime Minister, said that this deal is 95% complete, which you just said a moment ago. But have you already seen disruption as a result of the uncertainty?
No, we've seen actually more investment coming into the UK. Last year, Britain maintained its place as the third top destination for foreign direct investment in the world, and the top in Europe, which, given when we're seeing a decline in global FDI, there was still an increase in the UK, was remarkable. London is still the #1 metropolitan destination in the world for inward investment. And last year, in venture capital on tech, we saw more come into London, just one city, than the whole of France, Germany, Spain and Ireland put together. So investors have maintained their confidence because of the underlying economic fundamentals in the UK. UK.
Very interesting. And you make a good point about the services part of this. This is what you'd like to see upped with the U.S.
Well, the time to make regulation is where you have market dominance. And why would we wait until China came up the league, for example, before we set the rules around global services? This is our time. This is the time when we can have the biggest impact on our future prosperity.
Do you think that the world has gotten unified behind pushing back on China in terms of their behavior with regard to, you know, stealing intellectual property, forcing the transfer of technology? I mean, the president in the United States, obviously Donald Trump, has been pushing back on China. But is the UK there with the US?
In the analysis, yes. That we want to see overproduction end, subsidy, lack of transparency, not knowing what's state and what's private. All of that analysis we share. Of course, we don't share the 232 mechanism and doing it under the guise of national security, because in the UK, we're hosting our day on the Queen Elizabeth carrier sitting at New York Harbour. We supply steel into the US military, and yet we're now having tariffs applied to us on national security grounds. So it's the mechanism we disagree with, not the analysis.
Do you believe those tariffs on steel go away if you do close a bilateral trade deal with the United States?
Well, they are sanctions on the European Union. So when we leave the EU, then that's an issue between the UK and the United States. That becomes bilateral.
But has that been one of the talking points? Has that been among your negotiating with the United States when you do get a bilateral deal with the U.S.? Do you want, obviously, you want the tariffs to go away on steel, right?
We will want that, but of course.
But have they indicated that they would?
And we are not allowed, actually, to negotiate that while we're members of the European Union under EU law.
I see. Okay, so that's the sticking point. When would you expect all of these deals to take place? You say that the UK is going to be exiting March 29th of 2019. When would you see a realistic date for a trade deal to be in place with the EU and the US?
Well, we'll expect the EU one at the point of exit. We'll obviously have to have that relationship in place. For the United States, we finished our public consultation this month on our future trade arrangements with the US. We'd like to see that in place by the end of 2020.
Now, the president has talked about no tariffs, no taxes on any imports and exports. Is that something that you've discussed?
That would be a wonderful place to be. Why would we have any costs for our consumers that we didn't have to have?
Well, people say that, but then when you're actually talking about it, you are giving up money that's already been yours from the U.S. being at a disadvantage in a lot of these deals.
Well, there's a differential on car tariffs, for example, in automobiles, but there's a 25% tariff applied by the U.S. to UK light trucks. We'd love to see that go. And it's not just tariffs, of course, it's the non-tariff barriers. And that's what we've seen an escalation in G20 countries over this decade. Back in 2010, we were operating about 300 non-tariff barriers to trade. Now the G20 are operating about 1,200, and that's just an unacceptable trend.
Where do you want? What is the catalysts that we need to be aware of in terms of a UK-US deal going forward? What should we be watching?
Well, so we'll begin those discussions when we leave the EU, so that'll be the end of March next year. At that point, we'll both set out what we think our ambitions are, what our asks are of one another. We are in favour of general liberalisation of trade. The UK is a very free trading country. We'll want to see what we can do outside the EU that the EU couldn't do. For example, on data movement, the EU has got restrictions on data movement that the UK is not committed to, so we can see where we've got areas that we can make progress that we can't at the moment.